Thursday, October 29th, and I feel like I've been gone for quite some time because, well, let's be honest, I have. So I apologize to anybody who's watched any of my content. I've just been so busy, and for a number of reasons, not all of them good. Work has steadily picked up in my day job, and I also moved, so that took a lot of time. And then also, I have been sick, like off and on, for almost a month. So I'm finally feeling better, and I mean better in the sense that I can finally get around to updating this channel. And with just a few days before probably one of the most important elections of our time, it's better now to get some content out there. So with that, I just want to let everybody know that this isn't going to be necessarily the brightest video. I've read a lot of things this morning that just have made me feel not so confident going into the election on Tuesday. There are a lot of things going on behind the scenes that really make me think that no matter what, we're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. And it would take a divine miracle to keep us from spiraling completely out of control as a country. As if things aren't bad enough. So, with that being said, I had to get myself a second very large cup of coffee this morning. So, that being said, let's just dive right into it. So the number one thing, of course, this is probably one of the top stories going on right now outside of the general election coverage. This is tied to the election, but this is one of those things that just makes you just hang your head and just go, nothing ever gets done, nothing ever happens, nothing will ever be done about this. And it just makes you, it just seems like every single time something like this comes around where there is clear evidence for something to be done, something happens to where nothing is done, and it just gets buried, and the general public forgets about it, and then people like me put it in the back of our minds in the book of sadness of things that were never seen through by our elected officials. And I really hate to be the black-pilled one, but unfortunately today might be the day where I actually go down that route a little bit. So you'll have to forgive me for this. But it's a very rainy, crappy day outside, and the news this morning, for the most part, kind of reflects that. So my mood is going to be as such. So apparently, Tucker Carlson, who has been doing a lot of good work, apparently had some damning Hunter Biden documents mysteriously vanish in transit to Los Angeles, where he was conducting an interview with Bob Alinsky, a business partner of Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and Jim Biden, Joe Biden's brother. And an employee at a sorting facility noticed that the package had been opened and arrived empty. So you can search this video up on YouTube. They have the clip on the YouTube channel for Fox News. But basically, a shipment of damning documents linked to Hunter Biden and his father mysteriously disappeared in transit to Los Angeles, Fox News host Tucker Carlson revealed on his show Wednesday night. Quote, "There is always a lot going on that we don't have time to get to on the air, but there is something specific going on behind the screens that we did feel like we should tell you about. On Monday of this week, we received from a source a collection of confidential documents related to the Biden family. We believe they are authentic, they are real, and they're damning." So Carlson added he was contacted by the source while in Los Angeles preparing to interview Tony Bobulinski, a former business associate of Hunter Biden, who detailed Joe's purported knowledge of his son's foreign dealings on the Fox News show Tuesday night. Now, I haven't watched the full interview. It is about 45 minutes long, but I did get started with it, and it's pretty serious. Another person who did a very good video, a very quick video too, it was about 5 or 6 minutes, is his channel is called Razor with a zero, Razor Fist, or no, Rageaholic, I'm sorry, Rageaholic. He's known as Razor Fist, but Rageaholic did a very, very good video on Bobulinski, and, well, not Bobulinski himself, but on Biden and Hunter Biden and their ties to China and the money and the companies, and it was basically the most inventive, like, sleazy way of pushing money around in order for people to get cuts before they passed the bucket on to another another person or another, company or whatever. And so I highly recommend that. If I can even, I'll make sure. Hold on, give me a second here while I make a note here. I'll make sure to link this video in the description because it is very important. If you just give me a moment here. So I have the link. I'll make sure to put it in the description below, or in the pinned comments, because sometimes people don't read the description. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend his channel. He also does a lot of other interesting things outside of politics, but I'll let you discover that joy for yourself. So basically, all in all, this is kind of like reminiscent of like the Hillary Clinton emails and, let's say, the Mueller team mysteriously having their phones broken and destroyed and being unable to extract any information from them, I guess. It's one of those things that just makes you so angry and frustrated because you're just like, for those of you who don't know the meme, you feel like Jesse Pinkman in Breaking Bad. You just want to scream, you can't keep getting away with this. This is something that happens all too often. Something ridiculous like this just gets so I'm speechless. But at the same time, I'm not even surprised. Something like this would happen. And apparently the company, he didn't use the company because for whatever reason, I guess. We're assuming it's either FedEx or UPS. I would assume FedEx because I think they have probably the most reliable overnight shipping logistics in the world. So I'm assuming it would be FedEx, because if you're going to overnight something, it's going to be FedEx. You would always, because, and there's a reason why overnighting certain things cost almost like $100 with FedEx, like certain things. It's very expensive to overnight something, especially if it's across the country, because it was from Manhattan to Los Angeles. That's a lot of money. Well, a lot of money to, everyday working people. So I'm assuming it's FedEx, and I'm gonna be honest. I have a history of working with FedEx. Let's just say people are blowing up their customer service line to tell FedEx how great they're doing. So I'm not surprised that there are issues with getting things delivered correctly. But when it comes to something like this, where it is something that doesn't even look like it would be of value, because it's literally just documents. Somebody, obviously an employee, opened up this box and took the contents out. So it just reeks. It reeks of shady dealings, So who knows? And just it feels like now, because we also had the hearing this week with the tech CEOs of Google, Twitter, and Facebook, and that took center stage. And outside of Tucker Carlson's interview here with Bobolinsky, this is pretty much taken like, back seat. This is second stage right now to the tech giants. Now, don't get me wrong, the tech giant, Senate hearings were important. Were important, but let's just be honest, man. And this is why I was getting into this whole, don't get upset for me being a doomer here, but it's like that takes center stage, but we know nothing's gonna happen. Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever changes with this stuff, because they always find there's a reason why these companies are able to get away with this crap, is because they have some of the most powerful lawyers and virtually an unlimited amount of cash to get themselves out of anything they want. And really, a lot of these Senate Republicans, they don't understand big tech. Majority of them don't. Like, maybe Ted Cruz has a pretty good idea of how to, how to talk about things, like talk through some things and figure out exactly how to fix things. But majority of these Senate Republicans, they don't know anything about how this stuff works. And they pretty much just have to listen and take whatever these people are saying to them at face value. And that's why nothing ever gets done. Time and time again. What is this, like the third or fourth hearing we've had with these people on Capitol Hill? And all they do is it's like basically like a parent scolding their teenage kid. They just sit there and they just berate them and yell at them, and and then they just sit there all innocent, like, oh, we don't do that. We're not blah 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 blah. They just like say no and brush it off, and the next thing you know, a week later, everybody fucking forgets about it. Everybody forgets about it, and nothing ever changes. No matter how many times Trump tweets repeal 230, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Maybe revising it, maybe making changes to it, making amendments to something, making changes. That's like the best we can hope for at this point. Now, don't get me wrong, like, the president, he can do something. Like, he can force these jerk offs in the Senate to actually do something. But I mean, I'll be fair, he does have a lot on his plate right now, it being the election. But this is something solid that he can run on, man. Like, he could really, because there are a lot of swing voters who care about free speech, who actually really do care about free speech. I believe that. I firmly believe that. Tim Pool is a great example of it. He is a very good example, and I know I've talked about him a lot on this channel. He is a very good example of a swing vote. Well, not even really a swing voter. He considered himself center-left, that he would never vote for a Republican. Now he's voting for Trump, because literally that's all we got left. But he, even when he was still a staunch, never Republican voter, he still cared deeply about freedom of expression and free speech online as well as in person. And if it matters to somebody like him, who was a never Republican voter, it can matter to a great deal of other people who care about this sort of thing. The free flow of information online, the free flow of ideas. And it's something that needs to be taken very seriously. So we had all that nonsense going. And look how quickly I just got off the rails and forgot all about this story here in front of us. This is exactly what happens. There's always something else from day to day, week to week, that's going to take center stage and put all of this other stuff in the background until we forget about it. So, again, these documents are never going to be found. They're never going to be found. Tucker's going to complain about it, and then that's it. Everyone's just going to move on with their lives. Because, I mean, I'll be fair. Let's face it. Daily Americans, we got enough on our mind as it is. Only crazy lunatics like me who, obsess over politics most of the time and are just generally interested in this kind of stuff. But, because who would have thought I actually care about the future of this country? Because, I'm still relatively young and I'd like to not live in a decaying society. So, but most people just don't have the time to waste on this type of stuff. So, not only is this gentleman going to be forgotten, These documents are going to be forgotten. And yeah, I mean, look how quickly everybody's kind of mostly, for the most part, moved on from the coronavirus. You know, when's the last time you've seen like that take center stage? It's not. It's all about the election. It's all about how Trump's a big meanie and Joe Biden's the savior of democracy, which is a meme in itself. You know, you might as well just have like he's literally a marionette on strings, like just like flailing around and mumbling to himself, and it's like it's like a marionette on strings that's got like 3 or 4 different voices telling it what to say at the same time. Anyway, let's move on to the next thing that made me lose all hope. Hillary Clinton, yes, the most iconic villain in last season of the last season of this country, to serve as a Democratic elector for New York on the electoral college. This is horrifying. This is horrifying. I can't even. I mean, I don't know how. Like, I don't really know exactly how this stuff works, like to a T. But I just sit there and I just go, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Like, I'm an elector, so I'm pretty sure I'll get to vote for Joe and Kamala in New York. So that's pretty exciting. The fact that someone like this, I mean, this just shows how much these people don't care about you and how much they think you're just stupid. Sorry, I had to take a sip of coffee. This is one of those rare moments where I wish I had an Irish coffee, because this is just, it's all so tiresome. I am worried that we're not going to have a final conclusion, though, for a couple of days, if not longer. She said that she has been talking to attorneys with the Biden campaign as well as independent lawyers who are, quote, preparing for every scenario you can imagine. So if that doesn't raise alarms to election fraud, I don't know what does. Because there really has been virtually no reason. Remember when Dr. Anthony Fauci was like the pedestal of scientific knowledge when it came to the coronavirus, and Dr. Birx as well? Well, now that guy is just he's a pawn for President Trump. All of a sudden, when he came out and said there's no reason why we can't have voting in person. There's also a reason. I forget who it was. I have to look it up now. But there was somebody who said, Jane Fonda said, coronavirus is God's gift to the left. There's a reason why she said that. Because this was the thing that they needed to give them a chance in 2020. This was exactly what they needed. And it's horrible, and it's no surprise, because look how quickly they politicized this whole thing. Now they have reason to do this whole vote by mail thing, which is, I don't care what anybody says, and I hate these arguments that say that, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, thinking that anybody would be able to, you know, like rig an election through vote by mail. And I'm just like, I wish we could go back to 2016, because it makes me want to think, like, go back to 2016 when everything was normal and just say, hey, would you drop your ballot into a box? Would you mail it in an envelope in 2016, knowing what you know now, knowing what would have happened back then, or what happened back then? I'd ask Democrats that question. It's like, would you do that? Would you drop your ballot in a box? So it's just, yeah, like I said, it was the perfect precedent they needed to invoke this whole vote by mail. And also, what I'm going to get to right now, this is so infuriating. Supreme Court allows North Carolina to extend deadline for receiving absentee ballots to 9 days after election. 9 days, over a week. Over a week after the election. And this is a swing. This is an important state. This isn't some like hard red or hard blue state. This is an important like swing state. You can even go that far. I mean, what? Oh, this just makes me throw my hands up. Like, this is again the other precedent they needed to push for this type of stuff, extending ballot counting, like the extending absentee ballots instead of postmarked by election day, received by election day, to 9 freaking days after the election. And this isn't the first state that did it. This isn't the first state. There are plenty of states. There are other states that are doing it up to 10 days after the election. Colorado, what was it? Colorado. I think Colorado. Colorado shifting to all mail election. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is. They are doing. Yeah. Colorado is doing only mail-in voting. Apparently, that's some of the headlines I've seen. I saw it in passing yesterday, and I don't think I can find it, but it's insane. Now, don't get me wrong. Colorado has been blue for a number of years, but it's one of those states that, in this type of an election, with the enthusiasm you're seeing across the country, even in hard blue states like California and New Mexico and New York, you're seeing higher and higher groups of conservative people, and probably even swing voters who are leaning on Trump. And this is all stuff to just these are all tactics to try and not only demoralize voters, but also tamper with election results. And you'll never convince me otherwise, because it's shown throughout history. So the U.S. Supreme Court declined on Wednesday to take up a challenge to North Carolina's decision to allow absentee ballots to be received and counted as late as 9 days after voters head to the polls on November 3rd. Justices Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, and Neil Gorsuch said they would have granted the application for injunctive relief against the decision, which was made by the State Board of Elections. Newly confirmed Justice Amy Coney Barrett did not take part in this decision because, of course, she didn't. And of course, Josh Stein is just giddy. A huge win to effort to ensure reasonable votes, even in a pandemic. This is ridiculous. This is so ridiculous. Wednesday's decision came after a U.S. Court of Appeals ruled last week that the extension could stand. The High Court similarly blocked a Republican request to expedite a decision on blocking vote counting after November 3rd in Pennsylvania. Here it is. 22 states and Washington, D.C. will allow ballots to be counted after Election Day as long as they are postmarked on time. 22 states and the district. And you wonder why I have zero confidence? This is exactly how I felt back in 2016. Now, granted, I was pleasantly surprised in 2016, but up until about this, within the last 48 hours, I was feeling very confident about this whole election. But the more and more I started looking at things, the more and more I'm just looking like, yeah, sure. Outside of your mainstream media polls, you look around you, you look at, internal polling, you look at, you look at basically independent, polling agencies and stuff like that. Everything looks to be in Trump's favor. You look at the rallies, you look at the impromptu rallies by regular, Trump supporters, you look around you in your community, everything seems to be leaning towards, a re-election for Donald Trump. But you see things like this, and you're just like, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good at all. That's why I'm not voting until Election Day. But even there, I don't have faith in it. I don't. I really don't. And the fact that everybody is just laying down and taking this, and this fact that the Supreme Court is doing nothing about it. Now, here's the thing. Now, granted, this decision in Pennsylvania was due to a locked court, and this is exactly why we needed to confirm Judge Amy Coney Barrett to prevent this kind of thing. It was a deadlocked decision, which sent it back to the court in Pennsylvania, which ruled in favor of the Democrats. Gee, imagine my shock. And it was literally along party lines. And of course, it was the worthless judge, gosh, I can't even remember his name because the guy is such a worthless justice. He was the appointee from George Bush. I can't remember his name. I should, for all the terrible, horrible decisions he's made. He was one of the ones that ruled in favor of this whole allowing this stuff to be posted. And it's just, again, it's just so tiresome. And the fact that we are just allowing this to happen is exactly what everybody has warned us throughout history when it comes to the rise of communism. This is exactly what happens. I was watching a video yesterday where the person was telling a story. This is like an old video. A person was telling a story of someone escapees from the Iron Curtain in the Soviet Union. And he said one of the ones who came to America expecting to see a free and open society and country free from communism, and I came here seeing the same exact thing that I left. And he said people here are just allowing the communists to take over. And this was like 50 plus years ago, okay? And it's exactly the same thing that's happening right now. And I related to this book. It's basically like, well, it's not really a book, it's just an idea of like how people will slowly accept circumstances if you just implement them in small steps over time, which has been a brilliant tactic by the communist agents that have been in this country, indoctrinating the entire populace since like the 1940s. Because the Soviet Union knew they would never outlast the United States. They knew the only way to win was to subvert them from the inside. And hell, even John F. Kennedy talked about it. Even as much of a Democrat as he was, even he talked about it. And which is part of the reason why he was assassinated, in my opinion. We're not going to get down that rabbit hole, but it's basically like you move on someone up to the point to where they object. Like you move up, you like physically, like you move up to someone up to the point to where they object, and you stop, and then they take a few steps back to give themselves some distance, and then you take a few more steps forward until they object again, and then you stop, and then they continue to back themselves up, and they will continue. It will continue happening until they have themselves backed up against a cliff. And that's exactly what's happened here. The public in this country has been slowly but surely pushed and pushed and pushed by these people who progressively move closer and closer until the public just says, hey, stop this, we don't agree with this. Then they stop, and then the public takes a few steps back. And when I say a few steps back of letting their guard down and slowly over time allowing more and more things to happen. And now we are against that point. We're backed up against a cliff at this point. And no matter what happens, it's not going to be good. Because if Trump wins re-election, we already know there's going to be unrest. We already know there's going to be riots. We already know there's going to be protests. God only knows what's going to happen and how bad it could possibly get. But if the opposite happens, if Joe Biden wins, people have already said on social media and given in media itself that Trump supporters of the Republican Party, should be outed and be made known to the public in a threatening way, like to dox them, get them fired from their jobs, get them ostracized from their families. Who's to say? And I can guarantee, because I know how the conservatives are in this country. You know, if Trump loses, even if there's just brutal evidence, like just right in your face evidence of voter fraud and election tampering, nothing will be done about it. They'll screech about it in the Senate, and that's about it. The news, Fox News will screech about it. Tucker Carlson will point out evidence, and everybody else will just say, you know, do not trust your lying eyes. Joe Biden won in a fair election. I'm telling you, I really hope I'm wrong, but this is not looking good. This is looking awful. I don't even want to talk about anything else. I mean, I can talk about this, to be honest. Newt Gingrich, someone I actually haven't had too much exposure to him until the last, I'd say, a couple of years, where I've read a lot of his opinion pieces, and you know, he's got a lot of good things to say. And here he says, elections are never predictable. Every vote matters. It is vitally important that you vote and that you encourage and help your friends and family to vote. Basically saying, even if you live in a blue state, you know, don't count out your ballot. Don't count out your vote. Don't say your vote is worthless. The most consequential election in our lifetimes is less than a week away. By now, I expect many of you who are reading this have made up your minds about who you want to be president of the United States in 2021 and to serve in the U.S. House and Senate. However, I suspect some of you still need to be convinced of something, to go and cast your ballots. It is a cruel twist of fate that the most important election we have seen in modern American history is happening during the worst pandemic we have seen in modern American history. Okay, all right, come on, enough of that. The corona, blah, 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 blah. Nevertheless, it is vitally important that you vote and that you encourage and help your friends and family to vote. It is especially important for you if you want to see President Trump in the second term. If all of President Trump's supporters turn out and all their friends and family members turn out, he will win in a landslide so large that no amount of ballot fudging and will be able to overcome it. That's really the only thing. That could possibly cement a Trump re-election, is just an overwhelming landslide and onslaught of votes for the president. That's the only way he can come out on top without any kind of risk of them messing with the ballots. That's what Sargon of Akkad was alluding to. He's been saying it for weeks and weeks, if not months. The Republicans just have to absolutely smash this election. And I mean smash them to the point where they are so demoralized that they completely reject this far left ideology and go back to a more central bipartisan Democratic Party. But we all know that's not going to happen. If Joe Biden loses, he's going to be the fall guy. They're going to say, look, traditional Democrats can no longer get the job done. It is up to us radicals, and Kamala Harris will be the front runner. Kamala Harris will be the front runner going into 2024. And then people like AOC and the rest of the squad and all of these other radicals are going to try and oust the rest of the Democratic old guard, like Pelosi, Schumer, Waters. If, and I know this isn't a big if, it's a very small if they're still in power. I know there is a primary challenger to Maxine Waters. I know they're challenging Pelosi. I don't know about Schumer. I haven't read anything about that. But again, assuming that they're still in power, they will try and oust them and install their own puppets into these positions, and then the radicalism will just get even more radical. So that's really the only way. That's really, because we all know, that's how I see it coming. That's the only way I see this panning out. If Trump wins and wins big, like wins convincingly on election night, Joe Biden will be forced to take the blame. They will blame it all on him and say, look, traditional Democrats, old school Democrats do not work. We need radicalism, and we are the ones who are going to give it to you. And Kamala Harris will be put on the front line, and she will be the front runner going into 2024. And God only knows who her running mate might be. But I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. But seriously, this is, I can't overstate how important this election is. And to these people who are still, like, it baffles my mind sometimes when I sit here in my state and I see people unironically supporting Joe Biden, and I see like bumper stickers on cars, and I kind of like take a glance to see who's driving the car, and sometimes I see it's like a middle-aged, white guy or something like that, and I just go, what is going on in your head? What do you think right now? Are you literally one of those people who says, I will vote for anybody to get rid of Donald Trump? Like, if that's the case, then you have a serious bias issue in your head that you need to sort out. Because if Tim Pool can switch side, can flip his script, which took 4 years, it literally took 4 years for him to finally accept that Donald Trump is the best option for the country right now. And sure, yeah, he doesn't like Donald Trump. He constantly criticizes him for, in my opinion, minute things. But, you don't elect a president overly based on their character. You base it on their promises initially, and then you re-elect them by their results. This is exactly how the president should get re-elected, President Trump. We elected him based on his promises, and also because he was an outsider. Everybody wants to re-elect him because his performance has been pretty solid. Give or take a few missteps here and there, but overall, his performance has been solid, and there's no reason why you should change course. But anyway, to go back to what I was saying, I just sit here and I just go, how could somebody possibly think that electing Joe Biden is a good idea? I'm like, I seriously sometimes want to sit down with some of these people and have an honest conversation and point out all of these things. Like, look, do you realize that this will happen, and honestly point out how this would slowly lead towards a socialist communist takeover of our government. I mean, you're talking about expanding the courts. I heard there was Nancy Pelosi saying expanding the Supreme Court and adding even more federal courts. This is exactly how authoritarian governments take hold and take control of the people. You have such an overwhelming overreach of judicial power by the federal government that will be able to institute policies and decisions on a state and federal level at the will of the people who are in charge, the authoritarians that are in charge. I mean, just look at Soviet Russia, for Christ's sake. Everybody, I feel like it should be required reading to at least read the book, The Gulag Archipelago, because that is one of the most frightening books anybody could ever read. It reads almost like a fiction because you can't believe some of the stuff that happened in the Soviet Union. You just can't believe it. You're just like, how could a populace just let this happen to their own country, where a quarter of their own population is in prison camps and forced labor camps for merely for accusations that from their neighbors that they disagreed with the government and didn't like what was going on. Anyway, this video is, I mean, it's taken a lot out of me already. I'm still I'm still trying to get healthy. 2020 has been a terrible year. I think we can all agree on that, at least, for whatever reasons you may have. They may be different from mine, but 2020 has been an awful year. For me personally, it has been one of the worst years I can remember for myself, just personally. it started out terrible, and I'm praying it doesn't end terrible. Because the only way it could get any worse from here is if I die. That's really the only thing. Because it's been that bad. So pray that I make it to 2021 for me. Just, prayers. And I know I've been absent quite some time. I apologize for that. I want to get more dedicated to this channel, and I want to get back to doing it at least 2 or 3 videos a week on this channel. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for checking out. If you want to see more content, of course, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you hit the like button, that would really help out the channel, gain some traction. Comments as well. And you can follow me over on Parler at the informant with a 0. And I will make sure to leave that link to Rageaholic's video in my description and in the pinned comment down below. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you later.